Business has always been about turning a profit, making money. But can it stand for something more? Something beyond dollars and cents? We think so. We think that today, business has a higher calling, a purpose to be fair and just, to do right by their workers, customers, communities, and the environment. And it turns out companies successful doing that also do better for their bottom line. When you see the Just Capital seal, it means this company is a force for good. Visit justcapital.com to learn more.
And good afternoon. This is Mottek On Money, number one for your business and consumer news here in the 4 o'clock hour now on 790 KBC as of this week. Good afternoon. We are doing it live weekday afternoons now at our noon time in the 4 o'clock hour here in Los Angeles. Doing more in 2024 now at 4 in the afternoon. Mottek On Money, 5 days a week for you, live on the air right here on 790 KBC. Streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com and the on-demand Mottek On Money podcast for you at kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, and all your favorite podcast platforms, and, yes, on the socials, too. Well, we have just ended the day mostly higher and did post a weekly gain ahead of the 3-day holiday weekend, honoring the late civil rights leader, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The financial markets here in the U.S. will be closed on Monday. The Dow coming in for a closing loss of 118. The S&P 500 moved up 3.5. The NASDAQ eked out a gain of just about 3 points. The Dow actually ended lower by about, by 0.3% today, while the S&P 500 finished up about 0.1%. The NASDAQ gained less than 0.1%. For the week, though, the Dow did gain 0.3%. The S&P 500 up nearly 2%. And the NASDAQ rebounding this week up 3.1%. The price of oil settling higher today, but actually also saw a drop for the week. The price of oil today climbed 66 cents to settle at $72.68 a barrel. This has nervous times to continue in the Middle East as well as in the Red Sea, with the U.S. now taking military action against Iran-backed rebels in Yemen as Israel presses its attack on Hamas terrorists in the Gaza Strip. Middle East expert Lisa Dafshari will be joining me live later this hour to discuss all that. LAPD Chief Michael Moore, as you just heard at the top of the hour, has announced his retirement. Meanwhile, the race for LA County DA is heating up. Later this hour, I'll speak about that with LA County DA candidate, the Honorable David S. Milton, retired Los Angeles Superior Court judge and former deputy district attorney here in Los Angeles. But first, on your money, the markets, and the economy. Joining us live now, investment expert Brian Perry with Mint Asset Management and author of the 25% Cash Machine. Our first conversation here in 2024. Brian, good afternoon and Happy New Year to you, sir.
Good afternoon and Happy New Year as well, Frank. It's we're off to a pretty decent start here with the market, digesting what were some very strong and toward, rising prices there for stocks in the latter part of 2022. We're starting to see some of the price action that you normally see, where some of the laggards of last year are starting to show up as some of the front runners here on the front end of the year. So that's an interesting how, the prior year's lagging stocks tend to be the leaders in the first quarter the following year, and that's, holding true as well here. Although most of the attention is given to the Magnificent Seven and big cap tech, actually the best sector performing in the last 10 days here since the year got started out of the gate is the healthcare sector. The XLV is the ETF for that. And big name pharmas like Amgen, Eli Lilly, Novartis, Novo Nordisk, and Merck are all hitting new all-time highs. So that's kind of a background rally that's taking place. It's not getting much attention here because it just last year there wasn't much noise in that healthcare sector to get excited about. We saw the CPI come in here a little bit hotter than expected here this week, and that kind of put a damper on the market here. But when you look at the CPI and the components of it, the auto insurance index component accounted for 0.1 or 1/10 of the 1% of the 0.3. So actually, on the 0.3 print was probably closer to 0.2 when you back out auto insurance, because car prices they spiked in the last 2 years from COVID as well as Hurricane Ian and other flooding incidents. So you had, very strong new car pricing as well as used car pricing, and hence the insurance companies are looking to get back their premiums. So that was an outlier, and then followed by the lower producer price index here, which we saw is, inflation is tame. It's coming down here. So I think that the backdrop is very good. Bonds were stable on the week here. We still have an inverted yield curve here with the short end of the curve showing, 5 to 5.25%, 5 and 5.4%. up to the 6-month level there, and then starting to really come down fast toward the 4% level as you go out further on the curve. So that's explains pretty much why the market is still holding long, and you still see buyers coming in here buying dips. Even the fact that the war in the Middle East looks like it's going to start to widen out here a bit. But that being said, we had there's big rallies in certain parts of the market here, which are again really not getting a lot of notice here. In the big insurance companies, Travelers, Allstate, Progressive. All trading to new highs here, looking very strong here. Nuclear energy having a big rally here this week here, up 7-8% on the week. As that becomes the energy source for utilities, and there's a big demand for smaller utilities to be fitted around the world here, and uranium is just in short supply. Volatility, I'm thinking, Frank, is probably going to remain fairly choppy here in the week ahead. We really don't get into the thick of earnings season here till the week after next. So, we've got a lot going on in between. This week we saw this enormous, rollout of the spot Bitcoin ETFs. That was a big story here, and we saw a lot of volatility there. Kind of a buying on the rumor, selling on the news effect, which took place today. And then you've got Microsoft here looking to take the number one spot from Apple as the number one market cap leader in the stock market, which is actually a very good leadership change. I think Microsoft is better positioned with AI and with their software and with their other components of the company, a little more broader portfolio perspective there. And M&A, we're already starting the year out with a $7.4 billion deal with Chesapeake Energy buying Southwest Energy in the natural gas space, where we saw natural gas prices spike almost 30% just because of this cold snap taking place. So a lot going on here. Hertz is selling 20,000 Teslas because the resale values are coming down. The repair costs for these cars are straight up, and Hertz just wants to rebalance their vehicle portfolio. And eventually, I think that rates will start coming down here. So I'm looking for money to start, moving out of some of this short-term fixed income market under the idea that, you're not going to get paid as much for your T-bills and money markets going forward, and then start to move into more higher-paying dividend stocks. So I'm looking for a good rotation here for money to continue to feed the stock market as it comes out of short-term instruments and into, equally paying or close to types of paying equities going forward.
On there live with investment expert Brian Perry with Mint Asset Management and author of the 25% Cash Machine. Thank you very much for that thorough assessment of the action this week. And we saw some of the big banks reporting today. Turned out to be a record-breaking 2023 for J.P. Morgan Chase on the earnings front. It looks like Citigroup has some issues, and they've just announced plans to cut 20,000 jobs by the end of 2026. And looks like Citi shares moved up a bit today. Let's see, J.P. Morgan Chase shares moved slightly lower here. What about these banks here? Remember, it was about a year ago when banks were starting to fail, and we had the commercial real estate sector in focus, which it still is, of course. What about the banks here as we head into the new year?
Well, it wasn't just J.P. Morgan. J.P. Morgan had some good numbers here, no doubt. And they also forecasted record what they call net interest income going forward. I think that bodes well for J.P. Morgan. Plus, they have the deepest pockets here to buy troubled banks and assets going forward here. The stock actually came out hot at the opening here, traded up to 176 and a little bit higher than that. And it actually closed down on the day at 169.05. That there, I think, is what we're starting to see in this action here. Bank America kind of missed on their revenue numbers here, and the stock closed lower, as well as did Wells Fargo. So I think that there's these stocks moved up, very strongly on the notion of lower interest rates here with the Fed late last year. They all had a very parabolic move, and now they're starting to come in here based on reality. And I think that that's really where they're in a void right now. I wouldn't be buying the banks in here, and I think you're going to see more strain on the regional banks going forward here. So, there's if they didn't move up on today's news, and I'd say it's a good time to just let them settle in here, because they all made very strong moves, and let them back and fill, and see how the rest of the year starts to shape up. There's other things to do in the financial sector. Like I said, the insurance companies here. I mean, my gosh, you can look at these insurance companies, and they're all breaking out here. So there's better ways to do this. You look at the payment platforms, Visa, MasterCard, and other things like that. So the banks are They're a necessary wheel in the cog, but they're not necessarily a great investment right now.
Very interesting, and it should be noted that there's a lot of talk that the Fed will lower short-term rates, but that hasn't happened yet. So in the meantime, they're at about 20-year highs right now, and credit card interest rates are at all-time highs here. You'd think the banks would be doing better under these circumstances. What about gold here, getting a pop of more than $34 here, back to make that $2,053 and change, this at a time when I guess maybe some reaction here to that hotter than expected inflation number. But what about gold here, which hit a record high late last year along with the stock market?
Gold's a good trade here. Gold actually starts to grind higher here because you've got a couple of conditions here. Certainly you've got some geopolitical uncertainty going around. And also you've got the dollar here, which is the dollar index has fallen from 107 to 102 here in the last 2 months. And when rates come down and you're printing more money to pay your debts, then the currency, almost always loses value. So right here at 102, it's kind of a key support level here. Breaking 102 goes to 101. Breaking 101, you're kind of in what we call open water. And the dollar, could lose, another, say, 5 to 7% from there. If that's the case, then gold is going to just, continue to climb higher here as a hedge along with the cryptos. But gold for institutional accounts is your better trade in there. And my favorite ETF in that particular space, Frank, is IAU, a lower expense rate than the GLD. But this looks technically and fundamentally like a sound trade from here.
On the live with investment expert Brian Perry. Let's go from gold chain to blockchain. You touched on it briefly with the Bitcoin ETFs now live this week after getting approval by the Securities and Exchange Commission. What's your thought here on the cryptos, Bitcoin in particular, and these new ETF offerings out there?
Well, the SEC approved 11 spot Bitcoin ETFs, and you can buy them at the major firms here. The biggest one is Grayscale. Okay, that's the GBTC, and they're going to convert that from the futures ETF to a Bitcoin held, which is a physical ETF. And I think this is probably where, if people still want to trade, GBTC is probably the place to be. It was down hard today. I mean, it traded up as high as 43 and then closed today at 37.5. I think that's, you're going to see some washout here because it was, again, when people were buying on the rumor of this happening and they've been selling on the news, as the headlines cross the tape. Bitcoin got up to 47,000. It's around 43 and change. And you'll still this probably vacillating here for some time because that was quite a strong move coming up. Now it looks like the torch is going to be passed in terms of a trade into the Ethereum realm because now there's big talk that there's going to be spot Ethereum ETFs going forward. And this is where I think that people want to trade this, the ETHE, which is the ETF that's the most actively traded Ethereum ETF. For those who just want to look at, something that trades on the market, that is probably the next place where you can probably get some momentum going into a print on whether the SEC approves spot Ethereum ETFs, which I think they will because there's such a demand for it and Wall Street wants it. So, you've got the BlackRock, Fidelity, Schwab, all the big names. They want to be in this market. They basically are ruling the day when it comes to getting these things approved. And I look for Ethereum to probably outperform Bitcoin here going forward because the Bitcoin was a crowded trade coming into the news today, but Ethereum here is next up for this kind of an event to take place probably, I'd say mid-year probably, but there's time on that. And Ethereum is more of a utility type of a crypto as opposed to just the storehouse of wealth that Bitcoin represents.
Very interesting. We'll continue to follow those names out there very closely now that they were green-lighted just a couple of days ago by the Securities and Exchange Commission, and their approval did come with a warning, basically kind of like a buyer beware kind of warning, right? Which was unusual along with the approval of this.
Mm-hmm. Very much so, because they never really did want it, but that's not who pays the bills. For the SEC, Wall Street does, and Wall Street wanted it, and they got what they wanted, and they always get what they want. And this is just really again, it's going to compete with gold. It's going to compete with other currencies and other types of things. But again, you've got a demand for it, both at the institutional and retail. If this was just a retail product, it probably wouldn't have gone through. But you have a lot of fund managers that want some exposure to this as another form a highly liquid, hedge against fiat currencies, against depreciating currencies around the world, other than just gold. And this is what this represents. This is kind of an alarm bell going off when these types of things do so well. It tells you that, maybe there's a tipping point here with all this things, $300 and some odd trillion worth of debt running around the world that all these central banks have printed. And people are looking for hedges out there, Frank. And if gold is one that helps, but also they want something that also trades against the currencies that are losing value here. And this is one way to go about it here. So I think that this is still going to have some stickiness to it here. And I think once the Bitcoin consolidation is done, I can't tell you where it's going to pull back to, but I think there'll be some buyers here on this dip in a big way with these new spot Bitcoin ETFs.
All right. At this point, Brian Perry, here we are in 2024. Where are you putting money now and/or taking it off the table?
Well, if rates are really going to be starting to head lower here, which I think they are, then money's going to start looking for, again, high dividend blue chip stocks with strong free cash flow. And I like the idea of trying to replace the 4 and 5% bond yields with stocks out there that pay as much or better here. So you can look at things like at Verizon here, for instance, paying 6.9%, which is a great yield in here. You can look at Lincoln National, which is one of the largest insurance companies in the United States, paying 6.5%. Prudential pays that's the biggest insurance company is Prudential. Piece of the rock, that pays 4.9% in here. On the tech side, the memory and what they call hard disk drive markets are starting to heat up here because prices are starting to firm up. Western Digital, WDC, looks good, and Micron had very good numbers and also guided higher based on pricing. So MU looks good. I think Microsoft, at this level here, it's near its high, if not right there, but it looks like it's going to just cruise right through 400 here on this particular rally. It really broke out nice. And then on the crypto space, I think as opposed to buying the crypto, so you can look at Coinbase here, which has come down from like 150 down to 129. It was hit hard today, down around 129. But the CEO is just a brilliant guy, and this is going to get a lot of action here. A lot of trading volume is going to happen on Coinbase's exchange, so I like that too. And then the Bitcoin futures, BITO. If you just want to trade the futures on Bitcoin here, BITO, it's a pro share. That's pulled back as well there. That looks like a good trading instrument. And then again, coming off, I think, both these very popular names, Nike, they issued a sales warning for North America. The stock is getting hit, and I don't see any kind of mojo to bring that stock back anytime soon. We're through the holiday season here, kind of into a slower retail season right now. And Starbucks, more talks of unionization within the labor ranks, which is a labor-intensive company, big time. They're already very generous with their compensation packages, but unionizing that company is going to be a drag on earnings on the bottom line.
Brian Perry, investment expert with Mint Asset Management, chief investment strategist and portfolio manager at Mint Asset Management at mintassetmanagement.com. Also the author of the 25% Cash Machine. We hope that machine cranks up again this year, Brian. We wish you and everybody there a happy, healthy, and prosperous 2024. Thanks very much for taking the call, and look forward to many conversations here in the new year.
You as well, Frank. Thanks again.
Thank you very much. Have a great holiday weekend, and let's get right out to the freeways now here on 790 KBC. Friends, the time has come to start the new year off right with reminders from attorney Clark Fielding of Fielding Law. Now, if you've been hurt in an accident that was not your fault, it's easy to feel lost in the sea of legal complexities. Fear not. Clark and his team of sharks are here to navigate the legal waters for you. Now, they have the expertise to tackle any case, big or small. Fielding Law is not just about providing legal advice. They're also about making sure you understand every step of the process. So consider them your partners in justice. Whether you're facing a sea of paperwork, swimming in contractual confusion, or caught in a legal undertow, Clark the Shark is the lifeguard you need. The Fielding Law team is dedicated to protecting your rights and ensuring a smooth journey through the legal currents. So as you dive into the new year, remember, Fielding Law always has your back. They're not just lawyers, they're your fantastic friends in the legal world. Call them now, 833-88-SHARK. That's 833-88-SHARK, or go to clarkthesharklaw.com. Again, that's clarkthesharklaw.com.
I had the last waltz with you.
790 KBC welcomes the awesome Engelbert Humperdinck coming to the Saban Theater on February 10th. Tickets are on sale now at AXS.com. Right now, caller 9 wins at 1-888-795-2222 and get a pair of tickets to the show. If you're caller 9, call right now. Tickets furnished by the Saban at the Canyon, where music meets the soul. Engelbert Humperdinck coming to the Saban Theater February 10th. Call now. Caller 9 wins 1-888-795-2222. Mottek On Money continues here on 790 KBC. Good afternoon. We're broadcasting live in the 4 o'clock hour now, weekday afternoons right here on 790 KBC. We're doing more in 2024 at 4 in the afternoon for you. Right now, we can tell you the Dow closed down 118 points. It settled at 37,593. The S&P 500 up 3.5 at 4,784. And the NASDAQ gained 2.5 points at 14,973. Mixed finish for the market today, but a slightly higher performance for the week. In fact, for the week, the Dow gained 0.3%, the S&P 500 up 1.8%, and the NASDAQ was up 3.1% for the week. The price of gold getting a pop of more than $34 at $2,053.50. Oil moving higher by 74 cents at $72.76 a barrel as tensions heat up in the Middle East and the Red Sea, with the U.S. taking military action against Iran-backed Houthi rebels. I'll be discussing what's happening in the Middle East shortly with Lisa Daftari. We're seeing the AMC stock, the theater chain, hitting a new low again today. Right now, it's down nearly, 98% from its all-time high, which this is one of the meme stocks, AMC theaters, down 98% from its all-time high, which happened back in June of 2021 when the meme stocks were hot. The stock was trading at around $339 and change. Now it's at $4.56, a new all-time low for AMC theaters. Taking a look at the cryptos now, following the approval by the SEC of the Bitcoin ETFs, we see a Bitcoin pulling back today by more than $600. Right now, down to $42,875. Ethereum at the flat line here at $2,525, and looks like Doge hanging in there at 8 cents. And now the latest news here on 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues here on 790 KBC. Good afternoon. Broadcasting live here on 790 KBC at our new time in the 4 o'clock hour this week. And we'll be back again next week as well in the 4 o'clock hour, followed by our Legal Eagle Royal Oaks with the 790 KBC News Blitz. A lot to talk about in the Middle East and the Red Sea region. The U.S. aircraft carrier USS Dwight D. Eisenhower and several Navy destroyers played a sizable role this week in U.S.-led strikes on sites in Yemen that Houthi militants backed by Iran have used repeatedly to launch attacks on commercial ships in the Red Sea. The U.S. Central Command, according to Stars and Stripes, the U.S. military newspaper, did not state which Navy ships were involved in strikes coordinated with the U.K. and supported by Australia, Bahrain, Canada, and the Netherlands, but it did release a video showing F-8-18 Super Hornet fighter jets and E-2 Hawkeye command and control aircraft launching from the aircraft carrier Eisenhower. We're following developments there closely. In the meantime, we're watching what's happening right now for Israeli troops on the northern border with Lebanon. The government's strategy of avoiding full-scale war with the Hezbollah troops, also Iranian-backed, just a few hundred meters away, is embodied in the pages of a training manual, according to the Rifle Department, first issued in 1956 and hastily reprinted following the mass mobilization that followed the attack on southern Israel by Hamas gunmen on October 7th. This is the Reuters news service reporting that. We're watching these latest developments here, and let's bring in Lisa Daftari now, Middle East expert, editor-in-chief of the Foreign Desk. Lisa, thank you very much for taking the call here in our first conversation of the new year. Give us your assessment of these important developments here.
My pleasure, of course. We're watching the escalations here as the Biden administration wanted this issue to go away and not to escalate into a larger front or to combine this war with what is going on in Israel by Iran's proxies. But these lines connect us right back to Tehran. These are Iran's proxies, whether you look at Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen. In Gaza, you have, of course, Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, all being supported by Iran's regime and focused on targeting not just Israel, but U.S. assets as well. The United States now playing catch-up to deter the Houthis from targeting U.S. assets. As you said, there were over 120 incidents since October 7th, since the massacre of Hamas against Israel, that were just targeting U.S. troops. Now, experts are warning that there will be more targeting of U.S. personnel in the region, and also fear that there would be an attack here in the U.S. homeland by these same proxy groups.
And this week, we saw the U.S. Navy shooting down a barrage of Houthi missiles and drones launched from Yemen over the Red Sea. That, according to the U.S. Central Command, and the Houthi leader says a new battle with the USA has begun. Where do you see this go from here?
Yeah, it's very difficult to de-escalate when they're declaring this kind of war against the United States. I mean, deterrence does not start on the battlefield. Deterrence starts at the podium at the White House with foreign policy. And it looks as though Tehran got a very different message from the Biden administration that anything goes. They have been emboldened, they have been empowered, and they're going to play out the clock. They have 1 year of the Biden administration left, and it looks like they will do everything they can to escalate this and to drag the United States into a war that the United States does not want.
And indeed, it was right after the October 7th terror attack on Israel that the Wall Street Journal in great detail laid out Iran's involvement here, and we've only heard a muted response even since then from the White House on all that.
Absolutely. And the White House did whatever it could to separate and try to, again, de-escalate so that this would not turn into something else. They tried to actually deny even Iranian involvement, to talk about the Houthi attacks as one-off, but that did not, it was not successful in doing that. The narrative continues to grow, to escalate, and Iran's regime has very different plans. And not only that, they're working together with our other enemies. They're working together with Russia, with China, with North Korea now. And that is very much indicative of a weak foreign policy that has brought us to a place where our enemies are collaborating against us, and that we find ourselves not only not able to de-escalate what's happening against U.S. assets in the region, but we've been micromanaging Israel's war from the White House as well. Not a good look for the White House. I know we're coming up on an election, so a lot of focus there to de-escalate, not to be in a war. The Democrats obviously want this to go away. Everyone wants this to go away, but when it becomes more of a political issue in terms of an election year, then they'll really want this issue to go away very fast. But Iran's regime has, again, different plans, and they will continue to provoke and to instigate to get the United States further involved and to heighten this escalation even further.
And certainly leadership at the top makes a big difference here. I see one of the latest bulletins here now, the U.S. Navy warning American-flagged vessels to steer clear of areas around Yemen and the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden for the next 72 hours after the U.S. and Britain launched multiple airstrikes targeting Houthi rebels. You may recall during the Reagan years, the United States authorized the reflagging of Kuwaiti tankers with U.S. flags so that they would be protected, and any attack on them would be considered attack on the United States. Big difference between then and now.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing them, go after all kinds of vessels with very different flags on them. They want to control the economy. They want to, have a devastating effect on the economy. 40% down. A lot of shipping vessels are not going through the area, avoiding the area, as you said, and of course, waiting to see what happens. Nobody wants to be caught in the crossfire here. And the White House, again, trying to de-escalate this as best as possible, but at the same time having to retaliate, having to respond to these provocations by Iran's regime.
What is the situation in Israel now? We're seeing reports that the missile sirens continue to incoming rocket sirens activated in areas of Israel. What is the situation there now?
Yeah, it continues. People are not talking about the fact that Hamas has not stopped firing rockets into Israel. Of course, there have been casualties on the Israeli side as well, with their soldiers dying in Gaza in these very, very targeted, endeavors that they're going into, very, very specific places. And obviously there are booby traps, there are tunnels, it's a very difficult terrain to manage. The death toll is rising on the Palestinian side as well, of course. And then you see Israel having to respond to the ICJ, South Africa accusing Israel of genocide and being there. And again, world opinion is really on its head right now. The hypocrisy of not looking at other places where there actually is genocide, ignoring the plight of so many different groups that have actually had genocide committed against them, ignoring Hamas, which actually has the genocide of Jews all around the world in its charter, but again going after Israel, which is only defending itself against a terror organization that wants it off the map completely and forever. We're also watching that trickle over into the United States, into Europe, and other places around the world where Jews and others who support Israel are being targeted. Again, not over land or policies, but over the fact that there's anti-Semitism growing around the world. Of course, the situation in the Middle East continues to get worse, so we will not see any resolution, any ceasefire. All that has been denied by Hamas. And before the world claims that Israel is committing genocide, if they want to stop this war, they want a ceasefire, ask for those hostages to be released. No one is talking about the hostages. More than 100 hostages still remain in Hamas custody and have not been returned. So let's focus on getting those hostages released, and I'm sure that a ceasefire will shortly follow.
Lisa, thank you very much for taking the call on all those important issues you just spoke of here, and look forward to many more conversations here in the new year. Lisa Daftari, Editor-in-Chief of the Foreign Desk, Middle East expert, and greatly appreciate your time again this afternoon here on 790 KBC.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lisa Daftari. And let's get right out to the freeways now on 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues here on 790 KBC, now in the 4 o'clock hour, weekday afternoons right here, live on the air on 790 KBC. Crime continues to be a big issue here in Los Angeles in 2024. I don't know if you heard the news, but we'll get more at the top of the hour here shortly. Los Angeles Police Chief Michael Moore has announced his retirement in a surprise news conference this afternoon with the Mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass. Chief Moore announced his retirement as at the end of next month. Meanwhile, the race for Los Angeles County District Attorney is heating up. Joining us live now is the Honorable David S. Milton, retired Los Angeles Superior Court judge and former Deputy District Attorney. He's running for the L.A. County District Attorney seat currently held by the incumbent L.A. County DA George Gascon. Judge, thank you very much for taking the call live with us here this afternoon.
Well, thank you very much for having me on your show, Mr. Mottek. May I call you Frank?
Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, sir, and appreciate your joining us here. And first of all, give us your reaction to the retirement of Chief Moore here, breaking news here in the last hour or so.
Well, I don't know much about the chief other than I think it's probably time for him to make that decision, and I hope we have a good chief in the future that will be very concerned about the issues that impact the city and county of Los Angeles.
And someone else you'd like to see retire, I know, is L.A. County DA George Gascon. You served in the DA's office and then was elevated into the judiciary. So tell us what you would do as a DA here in Los Angeles County.
Well, as the district attorney of Los Angeles County, I would reverse on day one the failed policies of George Gascon. There are many of them, and I can enumerate them here, but to mention a few. One particular is I have on my website is hate crimes. And let me explain what that means, Frank. Any crime that's committed or motivated because of one's gender, ethnicity, religion, that type of thing, it can be enhanced by an additional 3 years. Gascon has ordered the deputies in the office not to file enhancement. So someone can commit a crime against someone because of their ethnicity, for instance, like the Jewish students who are hiding on the campuses of Los Angeles County. Gascon has directed the deputies not to file charges that hate crime allegation. I'm completely against that. I stand with Israel's right to defend itself. And there are many reasons why, and I'll get into that later if I have the opportunity to do so. Number two, these smash and grab things. They're widespread, not only across the county of Los Angeles, but statewide and countrywide. Those things ought to be filed as burglaries, and if force or fear is employed during these theft events, they should be filed as robberies, felonies. Gascon wants to use Prop 47, that $950 statutory amount or threshold amount, to say they should be charged as misdemeanors. He's 100% wrong on that issue. And here's another thing that I completely disagree with Mr. Gascon. What he has done is he's instructed his deputies, and this has been widely reported, he's instructed the deputies that any person, any illegal entrant into this country, if they commit a crime, attempt to find a way to charge them with a misdemeanor or a diversion program in order for them to avoid deportation. Now, why would the district attorney of the county want to do that? A person comes into this country illegally and commits a crime, a felony, and he's asking his deputies to file misdemeanors to avoid deportation. Why would you want that? They should be deported for committing a crime, and they're in the country illegally. And to commit a crime once you're here, and he wants to keep them in the country. This is just wrong. It's repugnant in my view.
On the air live with the Honorable Judge David S. Milton, a retired Los Angeles Superior Court judge, a former deputy district attorney, and we saw those poll results that have been brought to our attention that an overwhelming majority of the deputy DAs in Gascon's office now want him out of there.
Correct. They do, and they should. He's preventing them from carrying out, for performing the jobs that they've sworn under oath to carry out, and that is to enforce the law, irrespective of politics. The law is this: it's not subjective; it's objective. If a crime or enhancement can be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, it should be filed. If it cannot be proven, it shouldn't be filed. And Mr. Gascon refuses to follow the law for his own personal agenda. We know why Mr. Gascon is in this office. He's just a part of a nationwide movement funded by dark money to put soft on crime DAs in these offices. I think we probably know, or most people know, the reason they want to do that. So just think about this. If there's a national movement to put soft on crime DAs in New York City, Chicago, Atlanta, all our major cities, and now Los Angeles. Why do you want to do that? Because they want to let people out of prison. Well, what is that? What does that mean? Well, we've got to look at this on a broader scale. We've got open borders. Now we're letting people out of prison. Now you want to get rid of the police, and then what do you do now? You want to take guns away from law-abiding citizens. What is that for, in my view? It's a step toward not only socialism, but flat-out communism. And I think we need to protect our beautiful constitutional democratic republic. And that's why I'm willing to leave my retirement and come back into public service after 36 years, 24 years as a judge, 12 as a prosecutor, and I want to fight this. I want to protect our county, and I want to protect our country, and American citizens ought to wake up, in my view, and be alert as to what's going on right now in the country, in the entire country.
On the air live with the Honorable Judge David S. Milton, retired, and certainly the observation has been made on this program that Gascon seems to be a criminal defender, a public defender, rather than the chief prosecutor here in Los Angeles County.
Look at what he's done, Mr. Mottek. Just the other day, not the other day, it was on December 19th, exact date, 2023. He appointed a former public defender. He recruited her from the public defender's office. And this person, her name is Tiffany Blacknell, I believe, and she wears a T-shirt proudly saying, "The police are trained to kill us."
Your Honor, I wish we had more time. We'll have to stop there. Look forward to continuing our discussions on the air, as well as upcoming forums in the DA's race. That is the Honorable Judge David S. Milton, running for Los Angeles County District Attorney. Live with us here today on Mottek On Money on 790 KABC.
The NFL playoffs are here, and it all starts with Super Wildcard Weekend.
Give me everything you got!
12 teams, 6 games, 3 days, and one epic weekend that kicks off with a Saturday doubleheader, followed by a Sunday tripleheader, and ends with a Wildcard Monday.
Unbelievable!
The road to Super Bowl 58 starts now. Super Wildcard Weekend, presented by Verizon. Saturday through Monday. Visit NFL.com/schedule for ways to watch.